Today we are talking about career pathways and the characteristics of great leaders, and it is my great pleasure to introduce my friend and colleague, Gaye Morris-Osborne.
Oh, hi Ian. Thanks ever so much for inviting me here today to chat to you about leadership and the stuff that goes around helping people to be the best versions of themselves. So as Ian said, I'm Gaye Morris-Osborne and I'm the chairperson of Next Steps Consulting. We've been working in the people arena now for well over 20 years, and we enjoy coaching, developing and strategically helping those who are on a career pathway to develop themselves further to be the best versions of themselves. It's tough out there, and it's important that people do have someone that they can lean on and use as a mentor, coach, uncomfortable companion as they develop those skills to become the best version of themselves. So chatting to you about this today is exciting for me and also useful, I hope, for those who are sitting down to have a listen to what we're chatting about.
Thanks, Gaye. And I'm Ian Tidmarsh, and I am the Career Pathways Lead at the National Technician Development Centre. At the centre, we have been providing support across the higher education sector to universities to develop their technician career pathways for about 10 years now, and we're recognised by the Office for Students as the national body for the higher education sector. We are custodians of the Higher Education Technical Taxonomy Framework, or HET framework, part of which is an incremental role architecture of technician roles. These range from entry-level roles to leadership roles, and we believe that leadership and strategic thinking can be displayed at all levels within an organisation. The most senior role within our framework could be considered a strategic lead. We think that in order to be a good strategist, a good strategic lead, you also need to be a great leader, because people will only follow really great, credible leaders. For me, Gaye is a really great strategic leader, and Gaye has been supporting technical managers and senior technical leaders personally for about 25 years now. Gaye, could I ask you to share some insights from your career journey with us, please?
Oh gosh, that's such an interesting question, Ian, because my leadership journey started without me really knowing, actually. So when I was at school and very young, I used to go to my father's office after school and wait for him to take me home. And he had a great business and he was a really great leader. He was tough. Everybody loved him. He was consistent. He was the same with anybody, whoever came through his office door. And although he set challenging targets, he was humorous, he was consistent, he celebrated when people did great stuff, and people followed him from business to business. And without knowing, I sat and watched him and just soaked all that stuff up. And then as I moved on to senior school and had the opportunity to play sport and play in teams and learn a little bit about team membership and supporting all your other mates and fellows that played with you, that taught me an awful lot, along with then being a sports captain and a school prefect and a house captain. There I had to sort of realise the responsibility that people had for you as a human being when you were there with that captain badge on. So motivating the team, celebrating when we were successful, commiserating when we didn't do terribly well, motivating people on a cold and wintry day when they didn't want to go out and play sport. And all of those things, without me knowing, started to embed themselves in the person that I then grew into becoming. And then moving on from that into my first journey into the world of work and in my very junior roles, I found it interesting to watch what managers, as they were called in those days, were doing, and how they got their people to do the jobs that they needed to do, and how they communicated and what went on around me. And I suppose my first conscious learning was when I went into my first very senior role, which was a demanding and strategic role, which had huge importance for the Boots Group, that I needed to deliver on. And actually what I needed then was a strong leader who was there for me and would support and guide me in a role that was so new and so big compared to anything that I'd done before. Sadly, that's not what I experienced, and I found myself in a culture of blame, and I became fearful. I lost confidence. My line manager, who was very senior, only ever spoke to me when she had something to berate me about, and my well-being suffered hugely. So during that period of time, which lasted for 2 years and was probably the worst 2 years of my life, what I actually, with hindsight, learned was how not to be a leader, and that people need people around them to support them. And it is okay to make mistakes, because actually, if we don't make mistakes, we're not going to learn. And the making the mistake is part of our journey, and the reviewing of what we've learned and what we can do differently next time is so critically important as we set out on that self-development journey that we all need to take steps along if we're going to get better and better and actually become the best versions of ourselves.
Thank you, Gaye. Gaye, drawing on your own experience, what do you see as the characteristics that make a really great leader?
Oh my goodness, Ian, that is such a huge and broad question, isn't it, really? And I suspect if you pose that question to a number of leaders, we might say slightly different things, or we might say similar things. But for me, in no particular order, humility is really important. You know, the people who work around you are the people that help you to be the best version of yourself. And we need to recognise without those people, we're never going to deliver great work, and we're never going to exceed our expectations and the goals that we've been asked to deliver upon. So humility is really important. Self-awareness. I think the most difficult people to work with are those who aren't brave enough to be aware of their qualities and those areas that they need to develop on. So self-awareness for a leader is critically important. Integrity, respect of others, honesty, hugely important. People, as you said a few minutes earlier, people follow great leaders, and it's not easy to be a great leader, and we have to learn to be a leader first, recognise where we're doing really well, and then move on to being a better leader. And if we're lucky, we might get to be a great leader. And I'm sure, you know, every single one of us knows that to develop into what we want to be, we need that feedback from those people around us, and we need to be brave to ask the challenging questions of those we trust, who will be really honest with us, who see us through their lens and not through our lens, to talk about what we're great at and what we might want to work on, which is why an external coach is such a helpful thing to have when we're developing. So integrity, respect, and there's a real requirement for a huge amount of courage and bravery when you're a leader, because it takes you into arenas that you've never stepped into before. It's scary for all of us, and anybody who doesn't actually admit to the fact that from time to time in their leadership role they've been a little bit edgy and a little bit nervous is clearly not being honest. So there is a need to be really courageous and to be brave. Resilience is hugely important, and consistency. So I remember a story of a really great leader that I worked alongside and with, but from time to time he'd wake up in the morning and not be the greatest in the greatest way that he should be before he came into work. And he used to say to me, "Oh, Gaye, you need to set the scene." And I said, "Look, I haven't got time to set the scene." And that lack of consistency and me having to measure whether he was in the space to do the work that we needed to do together that day, or whether I had to put it to one side and deal with something else, is clearly not great and not very helpful. So consistency and being the same thing every day to your people, so they're not left guessing whether I can go into the office and deliver bad news today, or whether I need to save it for another day, is really, really important. So we should never kid ourselves that this leadership stuff is easy, because it absolutely isn't. And we all also need to realise and be confident enough to ask for help. Because all of us find ourselves faced with things that are difficult, that we've never had to deal with before. And, you know, it's dangerous for an organisation for people to just put their, left foot forward and have a go, when really they should be humble enough to just go to somebody who they trust and just say, "I'm actually a little bit nervous about this. I've never dealt with it before. Can you give me some help?" And leaders too, if they're self-aware, are very clear that they need support around them. And many will not depend on reading books or going on workshops. They'll look for somebody in the organisation or outside the organisation who can mentor them, and to be honest with them and tell them how it really is. And leaders also need to develop those skills into becoming great coaches too. And part of the work that we do, which we find a real privilege to be part of, is to help the leaders and those aspiring young leaders to understand how to coach and have great conversations with the people that they're going to work with and work alongside.
Thank you, Gaye. Very insightful. Gaye, what advice would you give to either aspiring technical leaders or those looking to develop their leadership practice?
Right. Interesting. So I think I mentioned a little earlier that let's not kid ourselves. Being a leader is a really, really challenging role to take on. And we're not going to be a team member yesterday and a leader when we're appointed tomorrow. It's a journey that we all have to go on, and remembering respectfully what we talked about in our last question around humility, etc. The first and most important thing is to remember that people are our most valuable asset. And, it's not this camera over here. It's not this sofa that we're sitting on. It is the people that we have around us. And so, therefore, it's so critical for a leader to start thinking about, I've now got responsibility for my people, as well as the responsibility to deliver the objectives and, the technical skills that I still take with me on my journey. So investing and supporting your team members, empowering them and engaging them is so critically important. And how do you go about that? Well, do you know what? You'd go about it by trying things out. You go about it by having somebody close to you telling you the things that worked for them when they are stepped into their first leadership role. We sometimes are lucky enough to go on workshops that we can explore that thinking with. We may be lucky enough to have an external coach, which is always helpful because that's a really confidential arena to work in. Or we might, like I mentioned earlier, think about somebody in the organisation or outside the organisation who might be happy to mentor our development on the journey. But people becoming a part of this role that we now have is quite scary for some people. Because they've not had that responsibility. And when you are appointed as the leader, then there are people looking to you for guidance and advice and the reality of what your expectations are. So you do need to show some passion for what you're doing and find a way to inspire and motivate those people that are working alongside you. You always have to keep an open mind because things are going to happen that you're not going to expect. You need to remember too that change is inevitable, and so you may have been a member of a team that might have been particularly difficult team in the past when change was happening, but now you need to embrace change and go with those people who are leading that change to be the best that you can be in terms of support. Positivity and encouragement is absolutely critical. People do need to know when they're doing a great job, and celebrating their success along that route is critically important too. So to enable people to understand whether they're doing a great job or not, you've got to be strategic in your thinking around what people need to be doing, what the job roles are that you have within your team, and how all those things fit together, and how you get those people to be inclusive and collaborative in the way that they work. Because great leaders don't generate competition within the team members. The competition is outside the team, not within it. So getting people to work together is hard because not everybody is immediately on the same page. And so those sorts of things that you build and learn on that first journey is really important. And you must never lose sight of the fact that with people being your most valuable asset, people need to want to work with you and alongside you. And I always say to the people that I work alongside, you know, people should want to jump out of bed in the morning, come into work and do a great job and feel that they're valued too, because their leader is, you know, with them side by side, congratulating, reviewing, and so in order to be able to do that, communication is essential. Communication starts with listening, and it starts with that ability to ask great questions and get into conversation. And the last and most final thing, I think, is that in order to have a great team and deliver great work, then the skills that you need to develop to attract those people into your team, to develop them on their career journey, and to retain them so that there's some stability in there is absolutely critically important.
Gaye, at the start of our conversation, we touched on how Next Steps Consulting had been supporting technical managers and technical leaders for about 25 years. Together, we've done a quite varied portfolio of work, which has, and I hope you're going to help me to remember what we've done together.
I'll try.
We've done things like individual coaching, team coaching,
Yep.
change management,
Yep.
formal reorganisations.
We have.
This is when my memory's going to wane.
Yeah, no, we've worked with people who are new into the organisation to establish them, and we've worked on the strategic roadmap.
We have.
And we've done some project planning
We have.
together, and we've developed our people to be project managers too.
We have.
We've done a huge amount, haven't we, around the changing landscape of Manchester Met and how those people can embrace those changes without feeling that they are being influenced too strongly to buy into something that they don't agree with.
Yes, we've done individual and team profiling.
We have, yeah, absolutely. We've rewritten job descriptions. We've done all sorts of stuff that, you know, focuses on how do we get teams to be the best that they can be. And we've done some very interesting work around high-performing work teams, haven't we?
Yeah.
And what those characteristics of being a great team member are. We've done some MBTI work and profiling. And then what we have done as well, which has been critically important, is when we've been losing people from the organisation, we've worked alongside them to help them to take those next steps in a dignified and respectful way. Because whenever or however we move on, everybody should be supported to be the best that they can be and understand what it is they need in order to take that next role on. And that work was critically important too, wasn't it?
Yes, I think you'd call that outplacement.
Yes, we would call it outplacement if we put that professional terminology on it. But, you know, it's a privilege to work with somebody who's exiting their role for whatever reason, to help them to be the best that they can be, to be confident when they go out there seeking work, and to remember when they were at their very best.
No, I agree with you, Gaye. Everybody should be fully supported, whatever stage they're at in their employment journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, employment is a circle, isn't it? So you've got your people who are joining, who need onboarding really, really well. They need to understand what it is they're here to do. They need to understand what their objectives are. They need to have opportunities to sit down with their line manager and review their progress and have honest chats. They need to know what their career pathway is that you've been doing great work on here to help them understand if they want to move into something different, how they get there, what they need to develop in order to be successful, whilst also recognising, Ian, and we all know this, that actually it's not critically important that you get to the top. What's critically important is that you feel valued and you add value in the role that you hold. And that's the work that we've been doing with people because, you know, there are, as we move up the organisation, the numbers of roles get fewer. But if we're happy to move out there in the organisation, then there's great opportunities. And as a great leader, we should be creating those opportunities for people.
Yeah, that you're valued and you feel fulfilled.
Yeah, absolutely.
So against that backdrop then, Gaye, of the 25 years of experience in working with technical managers and technical leaders, what do you see as the particular challenges that technical colleagues face when they're looking to move into a leadership role?
Well, do you know anybody moving into a leadership role has significant challenges to face? When you've been working in a technical arena, you've been rewarded in the past for your technical competence and growing those skills in the area of whatever technical competence you have. And so that's where your focus has been. Once you're given that title of team leader or leader, then goodness me, there's this huge thing that then sits on top of you, which is called people. And that's, you know, daunting for anybody stepping into that world for the first time. And so when we've worked with your people and they've had that first promotion, and when the excitement of that first promotion wears off and you now think, golly, there's people out there who I'm going to be responsible for and whom I need to do great work for me, then it's all about that people agenda. So what is it that we need to do with our people to ensure that they deliver the great work for us, that they understand the journey that we're on, and that they feel that they are being supported and guided and given the best possible opportunity to be successful too. is a difficult area to step into, and not all people will be excited about a new leader being appointed. And so you've got those people in your team too, whether you're a technical leader or a non-technical leader, it's likely that you may become the leader of people who've just been your colleagues in the past, and now you're the person setting the agenda, and that's quite fearful for people. But also, you know, once you've got the people agenda that you're responsible for too, and you're learning and navigating your way through that, you've still got to deliver your day job. You need help with resource planning. You need help with your time management. You need help with dealing with the unknowns that are going to come up and bite you from time to time. And so in this new world of leadership, there is that requirement to be able to present yourself in a confident way, being a little bit more politically astute than possibly you were in the past, and also recognising that you are promoting yourself and your team for the work that they're doing, and that needs to be aligned to the whole strategic agenda, and sometimes there's a necessity for you to manage upwards too, and to stand your ground on things that you may not feel are the right, the right way to be going on the strategic requirement that's been given you to deliver upon. So those are the questions that normally come up, along with performance management issue. And it's sad when people see performance management as a negative, because performance management for a leader should be about helping people at whatever level to be the best they can be. And if we've got the non-performers, how do we convert those people, and what is it that's getting in the way of them performing at their very best? And when we've got the high achievers, how do we help them to continue to highly achieve, and also sit down with them to map out what next could look like and what that development could look like? And for a leader for the first time to sit down and review somebody's performance and map out their personal development plan is quite scary. So I would end with the most important thing when you step into this new leadership role is that you're brave enough to ask for help, and that you don't worry when you make mistakes, but you use that opportunity as your review and development.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Gaye, thank you so much for your time today. It's been so lovely spending time with you. I'm sure that so many aspiring and current technical managers and technical leaders will benefit so much from all your advice and wisdom. We are really looking forward to our two organisations continuing to work together and to work together more as we go forward in the future. Thank you again.
Oh, that's great, Ian. Thank you.